Sometimes we want our programs to make decisions, and that's what if statements let us do. So let's take a look at these. All right, we have, start with this. Oh, let's see. I guess we'll stick with the green for now. An if statement has this basic form here. So we've got the keyword if, we have an open paren, in here we put a condition, we have a closed paren, and then one or more statements go here. And the way it works is that if the condition is true, then we come down here to the body and we execute the statements here in the body. But if the condition is false, we jump around the body and we don't do the stuff here in the middle. And from a terminology point of view, we call this part the body. Here you can see that, right? The condition is just this part here in the inside the parentheses, and the head is the whole part including the if. And so we can talk about the head, and sometimes we also will call it the header. And so we can have the header, the head of the if statement. We have the body of the if statement here. So when we use those terms, just so you know what we're talking about. Now, a condition is an expression that evaluates to true or false, roughly. JavaScript has true and false. If you use the word true, that means true. If you use the word false, that means false. So those are conditions, but you generally don't use those over here because it'll never change. So we're not really making a decision. We can also have variables that we initialize to values true or false. And we might use these sometimes. We'll use these sometimes. You won't see it in this set of videos, but you'll see it in the future. And then we have these kinds of expressions, relational expressions, they're called. And we have others as well, but let's focus on relational ones right now because that's what we're going to use a little bit later. Excuse me. We can use the three equal signs in a row to test for equality. So if E1 has the same value of as E2, if they're equal, then this will be true. Otherwise, it'll be false. Now this, with the exclamation point and two equal signs, is just the opposite. That stands for not equal to. And so in this case, this will be true if E1 and E2 have different values. Okay, up here they had to have the same value. And then the rest of these you're probably somewhat familiar with. You probably in high school did math that used less than. So this is true if the value of E1 is less than the value of E2. This will be true if the value of E1 is, and I'll just do less than, or equal. Okay, so that's less than or equal, and that's what I mean here when I wrote the same. And similarly, this is true if the value of E1 is greater than the value of E2, and this is true if the value of E1 is greater than or they are the same or equal. So you can see that as greater than or equal. So that's how these work. Let's take a quick look. If I have here an if statement, so I'll have if, and let's just suppose I have A is greater than B, and then I have some stuff in here, and it closes, and over here if I have A and B, and A has the value 10, and B has the value 12, then what's going to happen over here? If we use these values here, what's going to happen is we're going to come in and test And this condition here is going to be false. All right, and because it's false, we're going to skip around the body of the if statement, and we're not going to do the code, execute or run the code, use the code that's inside. We're just going to skip around it and go on. Now, if we instead have something like if A is less than B, and we have our code here, I'll just use dot, dot, dot. And if we have the same thing that we had up here, so we apply those values down to this, then we come in here and this will be true. It's true because A will be less than B, because A at the present has 10 and B at the present has 12, and 10 is less than 12. So in this case, we do come in here and we run through all the code in here, and when we're done, then we just continue on because the condition was true. So that's how ifs work, and of course you could use any of these for conditions that you wanted to. I underlined all the rest, so perhaps I don't want that one to feel lonely. I'll underline that one as well. But that's how a basic if statement works. So it gives you some code. You can make a decision. Am I going to do the code inside here or not? If the condition is true, you go in and you execute the code. If the condition is false, you skip the code and just pick up at the end of the if statement and go on. So there is a nice little introduction to if statements.